So here's a Heathkit SB 221 amplifier. This is a 2 kilowatt PEP amplifier with two 3500Z tubes in it. Runs great. I've owned this one for a few years and it's never let me down. Just love this amplifier. But I recently acquired an ACOM 1000, which does 160 meters through to 6 meters, and I'm kind of excited about 6 meters. So the amplifier that can do that band is pretty attractive to me, and so the SB221 is surplus to my needs. So I'm selling it. It could be yours. So let's take a quick look at this amplifier. Real quick look, I want to point out a couple of markings on the case, just so that you're aware of them going in. On the external armor, up above, on the side corners, you'll see that there is a very slight divot crease in the armor. It's not major, but if you're a perfectionist that's looking for a 100% mint condition amplifier, you might want to keep looking. This amplifier is great. It operates perfectly well, but cosmetically, it's not 10 out of 10, but it's pretty darn good. On the face, I'll just get in close here so you can see there's a very slight paint fleck chip on the face, but other than that, the paint around the inside edge where the armor slides on and off has some chips around the outside edge, but again, those are just minor cosmetic problems there. Faceplate is great. So here's one of the key features on this amplifier that makes it a bit more unique. These are square meters. They were originally available from Harbach Electronics. They're no longer available. They haven't been available for a few years. They are unobtainium, and they sure are handsome on an SB220 line amplifier. All the switches and meters work beautifully. The on-off switch, CW tune, and SSB switches down here work great. The knobs are clean. There are no defects in the knobs. The skirts are nice and clean and shiny. Faces are shiny. Just a great all-around amplifier. So let me get this camera set up in the tripod here for some stability, and we'll put it through its paces very briefly here so you can see what this amp does. So as we begin to do the band by band demonstration, I'm going to show you the amplifier being turned on. Notice that there's virtually nothing happening there except that the meters light up. And if you were to look inside, those 3500Z tubes have started to glow. There's no thumping of the transformer or the high voltage capacitors. So this amplifier has a few key features in it that are different from the original build. The high voltage capacitor bank was replaced, so these are newer capacitors. It has a Harbach soft key system so that you can key this amplifier with a modern transistorized transceiver, about 12 volts switching at low current. It also has the Harbach upgraded metering control board so that the meters are accurate, and that controls some of the other control voltages as well inside the amplifier. The fan runs well. It runs cool all day long, even in teletype operation, which is, I think most experts would agree, teletype pushes an amp to its limits. I've used teletype quite a bit with this amplifier, but I don't run it at high power. I don't push it very hard, and that's the truth. I don't want to have an amp fail on me because I pushed it well beyond its limits. I keep well within the limits. I hope that future owners will do the same, because this is a beautiful piece of equipment, and I hope that it'll last another 40 or 50 years for someone. So let's, now that it's turned on, let's get it all tuned up for 80 meters, and we'll see what happens. And I'm going to use a 50 watt input from the transceiver on all of the bands that we're going to demonstrate in this video. On 80 meters, putting 50 watts into the amplifier, it's now tuned up for 80 meters, and I did peak it for its highest power output with 50 watts going in. And you'll see on the relative power meter that we're getting right around 500 watts with 50 watts in. and that's validated on an external watt meter. And just so that you can see that I am calibrating an external watt meter to the relative power meter so that we're seeing a representative watt reading on the amplifier. I'll show you that external meter that I'm using. This is an AEA 3000 watt tuner with a watt meter on it, and it's a fairly accurate watt meter. So let's just do that again. 50 watts into the amplifier on 80 meters, generating right at 500 watts. So I'll be using that external watt meter as my reference point as we walk through the bands here in the next sequence here. Now on 40 meters, 50 watts in from the transceiver into the amplifier. On 40 meters, we're seeing 50 watts in, 600 watts out. Works great on 40 meters. So let's go to 20 meters. On 20 meters, which is a pretty important band for ham radio operators at this spot in the solar cycle, on 20 meters with 50 watts in, this amplifier is producing 650 watts output. And again, that is validated by the outboard watt meter that I'm using tonight as my calibrated watt meter. Now let's try 15. On 15 meters, this amp really seems to hold its own. So we're going to take 50 watts in. 50 watts in, this amplifier is producing about 700 watts output on 15 meters. Again, the external watt meter is validating what the relative power output on the amplifier's relative power meter is saying. So now let's go to 10 meters for the final band that this amplifier covers. Now on 10 meters, with 50 watts in, this amplifier produces just about 500 watts. It's a little bit low, but I think the sensitivity dial driving that meter might be a little bit off. The external watt meter is actually saying it's right on 500 watts with 50 watts input. Now, I don't do this very often, but I'm going to put the transceiver up to 80 watts into the amplifier on 10 meters just to see where that takes us with the output power on 10 meters, which typically would be the band with the lowest final output power for an amplifier like this. So we'll just do that experiment right now. Changing the transceiver's power output from 50 to 60, 70, 80 watts. I don't know what this is going to do. You're coming along for the ride with me. 80 watts into the amplifier, and we will have to maybe do a little bit of just tweaking of the tuning and loading capacitors. But let's just see where we're at. 80 watts in, we're peaking it. There we go. 800 watts in, and we're seeing it riding at about 650 watts output on 10 meters. We could even get more out of the amplifier if we were to give it a bit more drive power, way up at 28 megahertz. So there you have it. That's the SB221 power output across all the bands. You've seen it operating with 50 watts in and more than 500 watts out across every band. It's a great rig. Sure hope that someone enjoys getting a lot more years of use out of it. I've enjoyed using it. Could be yours. Thanks for watching.